Hey, what's up, masters? Welcome to another episode here of the Persistent Entrepreneur Podcast. Today, Mr. Norman Hardman is with us. What's going on, Norman Hardman?
Hey, what's going on, man?
How are you doing today, brother?
Great, man. Life has been life for the past 2 days. I think I mentioned to you, like really wanting to come back and be in full swing. And then my youngest has been with me today, actually yesterday and today. He's pretty chill right now, but getting him back to full strength so he can get back in his element. But all in all, man, I mean it's been a good day.
That's good, man. Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, I'm obviously I have my daughters as well, and so I get it, man. As we're running businesses, as we're being entrepreneurs, as we got all these other things happening, then there's family, there's life, right? There's all that stuff, and my family does come before my business.
That's right.
So absolutely, man. Well, I'm glad you're here with us. I'm glad you made the time. Today we're going to talk about conversations, word tracks. You've been very successful. Tell for our listeners, just kind of give them maybe just kind of tell them how long you've been in the business, a little bit about what you're doing production wise, and yeah, we'll start there.
Yeah, so I've been in the business 3 years now, and
The
I've
real
been
estate business, by the way, just for people listening, Norman is in the real estate business.
yeah, so I've been a licensed, real estate agent and practicing as an agent for about 3 years now, and I have been focused on taking listings for the past 2 years, and, since I partnered up with you, Dave, I have grown tremendously in my business. I think, my first year, which was a half year, I did, um, maybe, 12K. Then my first full year, 52. Last year, 130, and I'm getting pretty close to that now. And I'm just sharing that.
4 months in, I know, isn't that
Yeah,
beautiful?
crazy.
It's
And I'm
amazing.
just sharing that from a standpoint of growth happens over time, not that the numbers truly matter. But I'm excited about it. I had an opportunity to talk over the weekend with my friends about what am I doing with the money and put most of it back into the business. You
Smart.
know, I've within that time frame, well, first year as a listing specialist, it was me working by myself. And a few months into that, I brought on a admin person. Probably about 6 months after that, I brought on a buyer's agent,
Mm.
and then right before the beginning of this year, I brought on a listing specialist. And then probably about 6 weeks ago, I brought on a transaction coordinator. So
Kind of did
it's,
that backwards, bro, but
yeah,
it's
yeah,
that's,
yeah.
for another, that's
Well,
for another conversation.
my admin person was my transaction coordinator. She just happened to do some other
Oh,
things
so
as
you
well.
separated them. Good.
Yeah.
All right. I was thinking I missed something
No,
there,
no,
but
no,
yeah.
no.
Yeah, because the first thing we give away is the transactions. That's the first
Yes.
thing.
So
So yeah,
she
I was
was
thinking myself, bad coach, bad coach. What are you doing here?
no, no, no. So she was a transaction coordinator, but she had some more bandwidth to do some other stuff too. And then she was able to specialize, decided to keep her on the admin side as opposed to her doing the transaction coordination because she was really good at she understands the systems, right? And so it was a lot easier to keep her moving and helping with some of the SOPs and other stuff. She has some other skills as well, but yeah, so just that within the past year and a half, I mean, that's been an incredible amount of change, and
Yeah.
really pour back into it financially.
So, and we're gonna get into the conversations. You built your business on you're doing a lot of sphere of influence as well, but you've done a lot of cold calling. You've done a lot of getting in the trenches with people that you don't know and people that don't know you. And so, I think there's a lot of I've been doing this a long time. A lot of real estate agents, a lot of not just real estate agents. I mean, I work with right now. I'm working with a company in a little company that installs closet systems for builders and mirrors and showers and things like that. And I've worked with banks. I've worked with insurance companies. And people just don't like to approach people they don't know. It's so common, they don't feel comfortable doing it. And here you are, you built a business doing that. So I want to help our listeners understand kind of how you did that. And I think what's a little unique about you is you weren't in the beginning, you didn't do that. You weren't like, oh, that's not the way I want to build my business. And so I don't know, I wouldn't say there was any resistance from you because you've always been really coachable. I think you just maybe didn't um I don't know. You answer the question. So, well, there's two questions because before I went on a tangent. But um, why real estate first? And then I want to get into that question. What caused you to go into the real estate direction?
Actually, it was real estate investing. So I was a banker for 6 years, and I was going to switch from the lending side into the investment side. So I gotten licensed to do the insurance piece, and I was going to go to do the investment side, but I just it ended up not being the right fit for me. And I got invited for by a client to go to like this investors conference. He's like, "Hey, it's based on real estate." Didn't know anything about real estate investing outside of just being a landlord. And I went. I invested in the program. He didn't. That's the funny thing, and he still
I remember that
to
story.
this
Yeah.
day hasn't done anything with it. But so I started that journey. I was fixing and flipping properties. I enjoyed that, and I still will do, fix and flip. The only thing is you got to buy multiple for you to do multiple deals at one time. You got to buy multiple properties at the same time because my deals were taking 6 months, 8 months, 9 months from start to finish, from the time that you start looking for the property to the time you get on the market and you get the check in your hand. And that just wasn't enough financially to be able to keep doing that. I'd been asked whether or not I was going to go into real estate before, but I decided no, I'm not going to do that, do the investing thing. Came back around, decided in 2022 that I was going to do that. And so actually got licensed in November of 21, started operating like April, May of 22. So
Mm,
that's what brought me into real estate, man, was eventually saying, you know what, I think I'm going to take what I learned in the investing world, go ahead and ask, it's a good blend between the sales skills and sales goals that I had when I was in banking. And now I get to do both.
yeah, that's cool. And it's funny for people who don't know, you and I met on Clubhouse.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, a lot of the people in our community we met on Clubhouse back in the day. Jennifer Clubhouse, Ronaldo Clubhouse. Yeah, a lot of the people in our group. And we're still here. I'm not on. Well, I'm on Clubhouse once a week on Sundays, and that's it. But when in the beginning, though, your focus wasn't on cold calling. It wasn't calling expired listings and for sale by owner listings and people you didn't know. So what was it that got you to change your mind? And I know it wasn't comfortable for you in the beginning because we worked together from the beginning. But what was it that got you to change your mind first off? And then how do you feel like you took that shift where it started becoming more comfortable for you and natural for you?
Yeah, great question. So you mentioned Clubhouse, which is where we met. And specifically, I remember meeting in a room called the Mortgage Syndicate,
Mm,
and
Jonathan Bing.
it's Jonathan Bean. And so
Yeah.
there were a lot of people that I still respect now who frequent that stage. And you were on there. One of the differences I realized about you is that you are a licensed agent, which a lot of the people that were there, they were real estate investing heavy.
That's right.
And I've always been like a very creative guy in terms of like going after business. I was like, okay, I just need to get in front of people on social media. I need to call people on my contact list. I knew those things, but I also noticed that those things were taking a lot of time to hatch, right? Like it takes a lot of time to warm up the pipeline for that to actually turn into business. And I heard you
Mm,
talking about the cold calling, even on the agent side. I knew about cold calling and wholesalers on the investing side, but I didn't know about it from the agent perspective. And I think I was talking about needing a CRM, like a customer relationship management tool.
yeah, that's so funny. I remember that in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were like,
Yeah.
dude, I think I hear you talking about this thing. Like, why don't we just have a conversation and talk a little more? So then you were like, hey, just come to the community. Let's talk about it, see how you like it. Started coming to the community, and then that's when I started noticing like, oh, there's a whole system to this. And you I don't I'll take you back a little bit, David. I think you when I first started, I was like going to like True People Search, looking up contacts one by one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you're like,
It's what
man,
everybody
why are you
does.
doing all that? So I was like, because man, like I don't want to put the money into like doing all these buying all the software and stuff. He's like, look, just give it a go for 3 months. You can try anything for 3 months. And then if it doesn't work for 3 months, just abandon the system. I did it. And then that first month, I got 5 listing opportunities. I mean, look a lot different. The opportunities back then look a lot different than the opportunities I have now, but still, I mean,
Yeah,
it's fresh and it's good to be able to do something like that. So ultimately, having the conversation with you, man, convinced me, and I'm glad that I did because, man, I can see where it could have been a lot more challenging for me, and it has been a lot more challenging for people who are only depending on their sphere of influence for business.
yeah. I like to, so for us, a big part of my business right now is my sphere of influence, bigger than the prospecting side, but it took years to get there, and it took years to build up that database. But we still do the prospecting. I mean, I still do it. It still leads to, a listing here, a listing there, a couple listings, sometimes a couple listings a month, which is great. I feel like the cool thing about being good at prospecting is I can pick up the phone. Like if I need a listing this week, I can almost guarantee you that I can pick up the phones, go into Vulcan 7 or Espresso and start calling. And if I'm willing to put in enough time, I will find somebody that's motivated that will meet with me and I could sign a listing this week. I truly believe you can do that every week, right? And I know a lot of people don't like scripts, Norman, but I don't necessarily call them scripts. I call them conversations and word tracks. But I want to go back to though to you investing in yourself. And it's funny. This is the first time I thought of this, but I guess I do owe Jonathan Bing a thank you because he did connect a lot of me with a lot of people. You, maybe even Jennifer, I think was in his room. So, John and I always kind of butted heads, although we kind of liked each other, but I think we're kind of similar in ways. Sometimes you have those people that you kind of butt heads with a little bit, and he'll tell you the same thing. But yeah, Jonathan's a good dude. But tell me about, you said invest in yourself though. Like even the Vulcan, in the beginning, somebody that, says, hey, you got to go spend $297 a month to get these leads. But the mindset is, well, no, I can get them for free if I go to, people search. How did you make that transition?
It was very challenging because my brain prior to this worked in reverse, which is, hey, make money, save it up. Then once you have enough money to saved up, then you can invest that money in something that makes sense. Well, that didn't always work, right? Because it's like I wouldn't have been able to get to the leads and service them fast enough without some type of tool. And one of the things
Mm,
that you mentioned was like, hey, you already have some business, you just don't have as much business as you want. So why not just the next closing that you have, pull some money from that closing to be able to buy this program of software for the next 3 months, and breaking it down into 3 month expense that made it more digestible for me. And that also helped me with my risk taking as well when it comes to like knowing when it's time to grow. For example, when you start to get to the point to where it's difficult for you to manage all of the work and everybody's like bursting at the seams and you're actually producing, that could be an indicator that it's time to bring in some more help, leverage another
mm,
person. And the weird thing about that is that you don't always have an abundance of money just like sitting in the account when it's time to do that. But what you could have is enough leeway for like 3 months, 6 months, and reserves to where you can say, hey, look, it makes sense for me to hire somebody It's going to take 90 days to get them up and running, but that's going to help to increase production. And that's what I've seen, man. Like it's been incredible to be able to do that. So, for example, last year, our what we were just really trying to get to as a team was if we can get um, 5 sales in a month. Can we get 5 sales in a month? And I think the most that we have gotten is 4.
Mm.
Um, what and this year, like right off the bat, we had 4 sales, and then we had 3 sales. March was very slow. I'll be honest about that, but right now we're on track for April to have 10 sales this month. So like we're having everybody on board, like it's worth putting the investment into it because you start to see the return on that investment. But it was definitely a mind shift because I was a saver and I was taught that you got to save first, then be able to invest. But no, you don't have to have like a huge amount of reserves. You just need to have enough that it makes
Mm.
sense and plan to be able to bring somebody so that you can increase what you need.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important for people listening. And a lot of people, Norman, get hung up on that where they don't ever, and that's how I came into the business. I didn't have a business mindset. It was try to do as much as I can for free, try to get as much as I can, and it's funny because I still, I'm not going to say exactly which committee. I was part of a committee, and a couple weeks ago we were at a meeting, and everybody was talking about free, like real estate committee. Everybody like, here's all the free stuff you can get, and I'm sitting here like, yeah, well, I, I mean, I don't know, the free stuff to me. I don't want the free stuff because the paid stuff is what really matters. Yeah, the free stuff may just get you in the door, but I think the challenge is a lot of people, they don't get past the free. They set up the free and then they utilize it for whatever they give you for free, which is usually, 25% of what the tool can do. They never get to the next level because they're stuck in a scarcity mindset instead of in a mindset of abundance. Like, hey, I want to invest in myself. I got to spend money to make money. I was never like that, Norman. I came into business super poor. I didn't have that mindset, and I had to get around other people that were doing that to learn that. And once I started investing in myself and investing in my business, investing in tools, that's when things really went to the next level for us. Why? How? And then we're going to get into the conversation on word tracks and scripting after this. But how? Why is it so important to invest in yourself?
Well, I mean, first off, there are a lot of things with that. I think the biggest thing is psychological, which is if you don't invest in yourself, um, who else will, right? Like we're all going after clients. Um, Clients, especially people who don't know you, they're not going to invest in you if you're afraid to invest in yourself.
Mm,
And then it also builds confidence psychologically. Like when you actually put money behind yourself and then you start seeing stuff come
love that.
together and you see some results from that, it builds confidence and then that confidence continues to stack and build on top of the confidence that you just built. But then also investing in yourself, like you said, it takes money to make money. Like now that doesn't mean that you just throw money at things. Like you have to have a plan,
Yes.
but truly investing in it is like the point of investing is that you leverage or you put a small amount and it's supposed to have a larger return. So by putting in some point of leverage, whether it be putting money into a software or putting money into a person, it's going to give you back more time. It's going to give you back more focus, so that you can focus on the highest and best use of serving your business. And that's ultimately like what I'm focused on. Like I can tell that when I'm starting to focus more on the behind the scenes, it's like, okay, what's going on? Am I taking
Mm,
over somebody's responsibility? Or has business grown to the point that now something that was not as time consuming has now become more time consuming? So, to give you an example, now that we're having more clients, we have to service more people. More people need updates. There are more phone calls. There's more text messages and things like that that need to be sent out. So that's something that we had to bake into our process. So now we have templated messages. Like it's very similar to what our lender partners do. They're letting their clients know when they're going from this phase or this stage in the process to that stage, what's going to happen, what they can expect. And a lot of this stuff is just rinse and repeat. So we have the templates. We have things broken down into phases. And yes, we're having conversations, but we're getting sharper to where I'm spending less time doing stuff that can be duplicated and that somebody else can do. And I'm sure as we continue to grow in business, something else like that is going to come up. And so I'll either have to pass that on or bring someone else up. Like the next thing that I'm thinking about is the marketing aspect. Now, I'm doing as much as I can with the marketing, but I'm not nearly as much as I should be. So
Yeah.
we started to bring in an increase of revenue. Now I got to bring somebody else to help us with that.
Yeah, yeah, love it, man. I know we're going a little off with the topic today, but I think this is really important for all of our listeners because there's going to come a point where in your business you're going to get to a place where things start working, and then you're like, "Oh man, this is working." And then what you do is what happens with the common real estate agent will then stop doing all the things that were working to get the business to now start to service the business. And so what happens is, let's just say this is an arbitrary number. Let's say when I'm making prospecting calls and going on listing appointments, I'm making $200 an hour. That's my rate when I figure out my commission and how many hours I work, right? Like, it's just use that as a number. Now, if I decide, hey, you know what, I'm going to go now and I'm going to set up the transaction, I'm going to do all the paperwork, I'm going to put the listing on. Now, I could have hired somebody really, really good for $10 an hour. I
Yeah.
could hire somebody to get the job done for $5 an hour or $7, right? Now, all of a sudden, the way that I had to learn to think about this is what I was taught, Norman, is that when I'm doing that $10 an hour paperwork, it's costing me $190 an hour because I'm away from the $200 an hour, what I'm supposed to be making. So my coach made me refuse to do it. Basically, made fun of me. It's like, dude, this is like no joke. Like, if you're in your office putting a listing on, then you might send me a check for $200 because that's how much money you're throwing out the window right now because you're not using your time to prospect and find new customers.
Yeah. And
So that
and that
that's what it took from me.
I was gonna say, and that really hurts because sometimes people can listen and be like, "Yeah, that's easy to say," but especially when you're doing a lot of prospecting, you take a day off to do administration, and then you go back and call somebody. Like, I'll just get to those leads tomorrow, and they're like, "Oh man, I just signed up with somebody."
That's
Or
right.
typically with a for sale by owner, what you'll see is you once it says off market, they just signed with somebody in most
Yeah.
cases, right?
Yeah.
So it does matter. It does matter for you to be able to, as much as possible, do what it is that you need to be doing, which is prospecting.
All right. So let's go into that. So why for sale by owners and why expired sellers?
Yeah, I'll use your answer because they have their hand raised.
Yeah.
Having your hand raised means that you have made it known to the world at large that you want to sell your property. Now, the challenge or the objection is that most of them don't want to use an agent, right? They're on the market because they think they can do a better job themselves, or they're going to save themselves more money, or make
Well,
themselves
that's a
money,
FISBO, right? The
or for sale by owner.
expired is different. Yeah.
Yes, for sale by owner.
Yeah.
So with those things, I mean, your job is to show them how they can make more money with you, how they can get their property sold and avoid a lot of the pitfalls that they are not even aware of that come up inside the transaction. And then an expired seller, This may be somebody who's disenchanted with the process of getting top dollar for their property. They put their property on the market with a family member, a friend, or someone else that they put their confidence in, and it kind of stings a little bit because their property didn't sell, and they may be taking it a little bit personally. And so you help them regain their confidence by showing them how
Mm,
you can help them get the property sold.
yeah. So let's talk about that. So those conversations now that you're having, I know in the beginning it was uncomfortable for you, but how, like, tell us how you worked through the uncomfortability, and now you're really, really good at it. So we'll talk. Like, how do you go from that place to where you are today?
Well, with the program that you provide, we meet now Tuesdays through Thursdays each week.
Sure.
Um, showed up every day, did my best to be on time, and actually do what was asked. So if it was something that you were showing on the virtual screen, I was taking a picture on my phone. I was going back reading through the information. If it was a script, I was actually reading the script. I remember printing the scripts off and having it in a purple folder. It's somewhere around, probably in my computer
Yeah,
bag.
but so I want to, so I don't want to make this a promo, because I think, people can definitely take advantage of what we do, but this is, I think, more, I want to make it more about you.
Oh, sure, sure.
So, because I give those scripts, I give those tools,
Mhm.
I've given them to hundreds, if not more,
Got it.
of agents, and they had the same opportunity as you, same script, same platform, same access, but yet they weren't able to do anything with it. What do you think is the difference?
Well, I've put myself in a place to where I almost have to succeed. So right now I'm in a position where the majority of my funds, I would say 80% of what we use, well, probably more than that now, of what we do for income comes from me and what I do in real estate. And I've got a wife and 3 kids. So sure, I mean, I could go back to corporate and do something else, but it's not something I want to do. And then also, I like to think that I'm a competitive person. I like to make things work. If I'm going to commit to something, then I
Mm,
like to stick with it. And so part of that is knowing, like, hey, if I don't do what I'm supposed to do or do what I need to do, this thing is not going to work. And so I can't say why that sometimes having your back up against the wall doesn't work for other people, but I know it works for me. And
mm,
so I came into, by the time we met, I had a little nest egg when it came to savings, but it was definitely starting to get smaller. And then in 2024, I came into the year and I had done the calculations, and I think I had enough in reserves to make it through March. After March, that was it. So I had to produce or hang it up.
mm.
And so I decided to show up. And
So talk to us about, describe, what does that mean? Decided to show up, like, walk us through that.
yeah, I remember back in March, you put out a challenge to where, you remember we did the 10-day listing challenge,
Yeah, it's
and
been a while, but yeah.
we had to have 10 conversations a day with people. So that means you call, and then you actually have to have conversations where people just don't say, "I'm not interested," and hang up.
Yeah, I
So
think
you
it'd
actually,
have to be 30 seconds, or right, it would have to be at least 30 seconds or it doesn't count, if I
exactly.
remember the rules. Yeah.
So by the time you do that, man, you start counting that up. That's a lot of conversations per day. And actually, I didn't do that well on the challenge because I had things going on. But I right after the challenge, I committed to going right back into um, doing that. And I said, you know what, I'm going to try this challenge again by myself. And I just started doing 10 conversations a day. Things started happening. And prior to that, you had been talking to me about, hey, Norman, you need a higher level of accountability. Glad you're in the group, but why don't you do like one on one coaching? Again, investing in myself. I was like, I don't know if I want to invest that much first. And then It's funny, the same thing that you told me when I was doing the looking at the software, you told me about this big closing that I had coming up. He's like, hey, once you have this big closing, shouldn't that be enough for you to be able to do 3 months? And I decided to invest in myself again. The last thing I'll say with this is you asked me about committing to daily accountability, which means every day, Monday through Friday, I had to be honest with my numbers. Okay, Norman,
Mm,
how many conversations are you going to have every day? Oh, eight. If I got 7 conversations, Norman, the number is eight. Why didn't you get eight? And if I had my conversations, okay, well, did you show up 100% on those 8 conversations? Okay, why not? So I knew committing to that level of accountability would be a stretch for me, and it would be a challenge. But I also knew it's what I needed. So it
mm.
wasn't just me in isolation, just being like this beast or this animal. It was putting myself in the right environment to be challenged, and what I knew it would take for me to commit.
I love it. All right, let's talk about those conversations now. So, for sale by owners, you're calling them, they have their hands raised, they're motivated, expired, same thing. They had homes on the market, didn't sell. Sometimes they're discouraged now,
Yeah.
but ultimately they were motivated to sell, right? So, how do you? Let's go with it. Fizbo's first. What are you thinking before you call them, and what does that sound like?
Yeah. Now I'm just looking at the property address, and I want to sound uh confident, and I want to sound but I also want to sound like someone who's just local calling about the property, someone who's interested in their property as opposed to, hey, I'm so and so. I can like a salesperson. I don't want to sound like a salesperson at all. So I literally come across with energetic tone. I listen for how they respond. If they respond back with energy, then I continue with that same tone. If they're a little more direct, then I get a little more direct into the script. So
So when you
um,
say energetic tone, like what does that sound like?
yeah, so I may just say, "Hey, David, man, I just saw the property on Shield Street. Just want to know is it still available?" And if you're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, we just put it up yesterday," then I'm gonna feed off that energy, maybe compliment the pictures or stuff like that. But if it's more like, "Yeah, what do you want?"
Hmm.
then
Then
I'm gonna
what?
be yeah, then I'm gonna be a little more scripted. Hey, great, saw the property, like the interview for the position of getting it sold. And so you're just learning how to respond and what works based on who you're speaking with.
Hmm. Yeah, I like that. That's a good way to think about it. And so, what percentage? So, anyways, so someone says to you, "Hey, yeah, I'm not interested. I'm selling myself, obviously, right? I'm not using a realtor. What do you do? What do you do with it then?"
Yeah, I mean, then I'll just ask them maybe why that is. If it's a for sale by owner, I'm gonna say, hey, I understand that. Are you trying to looking to save on the commission, or is it something else? Uh, if it's um, if it's an expired, I'm gonna say, yeah, I get it. I know it can be frustrating to have your property on the market and to not sell. And I may come back with, but I'm just curious if you were confident you could still get what you were asking on the property, would you still sell? So it's just learning from the script, right? The script is definitely going to help, but it's also learning better how to read where people are coming from, and 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 learning how to respond to their objections.
Yeah, sounds like it's a lot of listening too. Like
A lot of
you're
listening.
really you've gotten really, really good at listening and responding to people. Word tracks is right.
Yeah.
What's word tracks mean to you when I say that?
Yeah. So typically, a word track is gonna give you an idea of there are common objections that sellers are going to give. There may be some variances in terms of the type of objections they give when you ask them if they're selling their home. but they're going to fit in typically a few boxes. And when you hear that, it cues you into how to respond based on the script,
Mm,
or to maybe change the pattern so that you can find out a little more about what has them selling in the first place.
yeah. So you're kind of cute. So do you have almost like a prompt in a lot of like for I'll give you an example. For me, whenever somebody says I'm going to stick with the same agent for 15 years, I in my mind I say, "Oh, is that because you feel obligated
Obligated.
because they
Yeah.
spent time and money?" So it just kind of
Yeah.
triggers that. So have you developed those types of prompts as well that will then trigger a word track?
Yeah. And when I don't, um, when it doesn't trigger the word track, then I know it's because I've either gotten away from the script, or it's typically that. If something doesn't click when they throw an objection, then I'm like, okay, this is an objection that I haven't visited in a while, so I need to go back and spend some more time with it.
Yeah, and then every once in a while you get a new one and you get whatever, you deal with it. And I think the key to this is being present with people though.
Mm,
Like I feel like sometimes, specifically real estate agents will get so hung up on scripts that they sound like a robot
yeah,
calling you. And it doesn't, and people pick up on that right away.
yeah.
So how do you get good at these conversations?
Getting out there and getting beat up. No, I mean it's a mixture of role playing with other people. So role playing helps. You go out, you bring some of the challenges that you're having on live calls back to the role play group, and you talk through how to address some of those concerns. You practice it, you get back out there, it goes a little better the next time, and you're constantly improving that way, by practicing in the gym with people who are making calls just like you, and then actually going out there and making those phone calls, getting back out there.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's all practice at the end of the day. And, sometimes you just got to make the calls and take the lumps. I
Mm.
remember I started on, Steve Clement's team 24 years ago. First day in the office, he had me calling for sale by owners. And we were calling like areas like 2.5 hours from us because it didn't matter.
Yeah,
Right. If it panned out, then you'd get a referral. We ran out of people to call locally, so we just expanded our search. But he was smart enough to get me on the phones, making the calls, and then I was just getting better by actually doing it.
yeah, yeah.
I like to always say, you can watch Michael Phelps all
Mhm.
day. He could give you a presentation on the side of the pool. He could have the best slideshow. He could give you demo, but until you get in the pool, it means nothing. You are
That's right.
getting zero, absolutely zero, until you get in the pool and start swimming.
That's right.
And I think some of us try to rely on all that stuff. All right. So talk about the expired quick. What would you say is the biggest difference between a for sale by owner and an expired? Should people listening to us focus on one or the other? Should they focus on both? What would be your suggestion?
Yeah, I think focusing on both is great. A lot of times people like to go in, I'm going to focus on for sale, and I'm going to focus on expired. Happens you get comfortable with that avatar, and then you feel don't really commit to the other. But it's just as easy to commit to both at the same time. I think one of the things that helped me out that you mentioned is, hey, if you're calling for sale by owners, especially when you're doing follow ups, call them on Monday. Call the expired follow ups on Tuesday. So I'm already in that frame of mind when I'm talking to them. You're for sale by owners. Not always is going to be the case, but they're typically going to be more motivated about commission, or having control over the process. Um, your expireds, they're typically going to be a little more skeptical. Like, maybe, what are you going to do differently than the last agent? Or
Mm,
they may be doubting their decisions from the last situation and saying, hey, this time I'm going to go back with the same realtor and I'm going to go with their recommendations. And so it's how do you deal with those types of objections?
Yeah. So as we're wrapping up, Norman, what would you say to somebody that's maybe listening to this now and they're like, well, I don't know, I've tried this before and it doesn't work, and maybe that works for you, but not for me. What would you say to that person?
Yeah, I would say you gotta challenge yourself. Having the already that's a self-defeating attitude. That's the attitude that we're trying to work our expired sellers through. Is that, oh, I already tried
Mm,
that before. I already put
I
my
like
house on the
that.
market. You know, like, oh, great. Well, great. You know, inventory's low, and there are a lot more buyers out here getting ready to hit the spring market. Now's the perfect time for you to be on the market. And so I would say you have experienced some different things. You're hopefully a little wiser. You've had some time to meditate on and reflect on things that didn't work the last time. So now's the perfect time for you to jump back in and commit. Hopefully, some of the things that I've shared today about ways and strategies that help me to commit better are things that you can use yourself. Um,
Mm,
I definitely caution against doing it yourself, thinking, okay, well, I'll just do the free version, or I'll just take what I'm hearing from this interview and just kind of piecemeal it, cobble some stuff together. Yes, this type of stuff is best done in a community because there are going to
that's
be
true.
days where you're feeling like, feel that you don't want to make calls. You're going to feel a little burnout. Those different things will settle in. But if you're around other people that are going through the same thing, it's going to help you to kind of get over those plateaus.
Yeah, I like that. I like what you said too about, you know, I never really thought of it that way, but when you think about the you getting over, like, I can do it is the same as the expired kind of getting over the oh, because they've given up.
Yeah,
Most expireds, we just, I was going to sell my house because I needed more space, but now I'll just keep my family in a smaller house because, it's almost weird in a lot of ways, the mindset, but that's what it is. It's a defeated mindset. So I love that you brought that up, because it's the way that I do these calls. And dude, I don't want to make calls. I don't want to cold call people either. Like,
yeah,
there's nothing fun about it. People saying dumb things to you sometimes, but I remind myself that I'm helping them.
yeah,
Like, because I know I can help them. That's why I'm doing it. Like, listen, I get it. You're frustrated, but I have a solution for you. Do you have like a hack like that, or a way to kind of help yourself stay focused when you really don't feel like it?
yeah, for sure. I mean, about me myself or for clients?
Yeah, for yourself. Like, how do you get, like, the days you wake up and you don't feel like it, or maybe whatever it is. Like, we're all humans, right? We all deal with our own stuff. Is there a thing that keeps you going on those
Yeah,
days that it's a little more challenging?
yeah. So I mean, there are a lot of things like that. I think now that I have a team is more helpful because I know that they're depending on me to be faithful to what it is that we're doing and the goals that we've set. Because if I can't be faithful to it, then how can I affect them? How can I expect them to be faithful to it? They joined my
That's right.
team because they saw something in my vision. So I got to keep that alive for them. Um, I don't know if you can see this or not. Um,
I don't see it because of your background,
okay,
unfortunately.
sorry, but
That's all
it's
right.
uh, it's it's a pen that I bought toward the end of last year, and I wanted something that every time I looked at it, it reminded me of my commitment to my goals. So I literally carry it with me everywhere I go, and it's something that I can pull out and look at, and instantly it reminds me of the commitment. And like a day like today, with having my son home and him needing more of my attention, I wasn't able to make my phone calls like I needed to. So now I have a decision to make. What am I going to do with the rest of the time that I have for today? Am I going to accept the excuse and say, well, just try again tomorrow? Or am I going to say, no, now's a perfect opportunity for me to get back in there. Maybe I'll even have some better conversations this evening because people will be home. And, uh,
Mm,
so it's those types of things, man. It's not a silver bullet. It's a day by day process. Sometimes it's the team that's going to inspire you. Sometimes it's having someone that you're accountable to that's going to inspire you. Sometimes maybe it's having like a token or something like I have here to inspire you. But you got to keep it fresh so that you're
Mm,
continually keep like this, like you said with the script all the time, like keeping things fresh, man, so that you're constantly finding new ways to challenge yourself.
I love it. Good. Good stuff, man. Anything I missed?
I think that's it, man. I think that's it.
Um, what does it mean to you to be an entrepreneur?
It's funny you ask that question. It continues to morph. Right now, I think being an entrepreneur is just really being committed to the process of what I have going on. Um, it's funny. A lot of people want to get away from being an employee because they have the freedom of time factor. But the difference of a successful business owner, entrepreneur, is that they understand the importance of committing to time like an employee. Um, and so that's what the commitment factor of committing to the business like an employee, committing because I know that I have people that are following me, and being just ultimately relentless. And hey, I'm not giving myself any other option but to be successful at doing this. There's no turning back.
Yeah.
I think that's what keeps me going is, and I mean, there are times that I feel like I wouldn't say there's been a time yet that I feel like stopping real estate altogether, but there are definitely times often that come up that I'm like, man, just not today. Like, let me just
Yeah.
take a day off, and I have to fight against that, man. I fight against
Yeah.
that often, like at least maybe 1 or 2 days a week. And a lot of times that can be because maybe the phone calls aren't going as well as I would like them to. Maybe March also was a slower month. I was felt like I was calling, and sometimes that call reluctance or being reluctant to pick up the phone can set in because you're not seeing the results that you want to see. And that's where you really have to dig in deeper and say, hey, I've got to commit to this. This is why I'm committing, and we're going to get this thing done.
Beautiful. Well, we'll have to do another whole episode on call reluctance. I'm not even going to open that can right now. That's another whole podcast episode. So, well, I appreciate you being here, man. I know for referrals, you guys do a tremendous job. So, for the listeners, what would be the best way for them to get in touch with you? Where are you located? Socials, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I would say wherever you're seeing this video is the best place to get in contact with me. I'm on most platforms, even YouTube. I'm on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Most of the platforms, I'm there. So feel free to message me and I'll respond.
Cool. And you're in, tell us where you sell real estate for referrals, because we know we have some agents that send referrals.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm in Georgia and Alabama, and I have actually partnered with some people that wanted to send referrals, and I've sent referrals to other agents as well. So I'll be glad to do that. If you have questions about where in Georgia and Alabama I serve, I'll be glad to tell you that. And if you need help finding another agent in the state that's in another area outside of where I serve, I'll be glad to help you do that.
Amazing. Awesome. And for you guys too, I don't do this enough, but I'm here in Massachusetts. And so you need, I don't serve the whole state, but I serve the center. And if you looking for somebody, reach out to me. And like Norman said, I will tell you who to talk to in different parts of the state. On the Cape, I know who to talk to. On Western Mass, I know who to talk to. So we cover the center of the state. So in Boston, I know who to talk to. So yeah, so that's such a good point, Norman. And finally, Vulcan 7, for you guys that want to try out Vulcan, reach out to me and we'll get you connected with Vulcan. You can, listen to some of the strategies Norman used. He's not just on here saying this. We didn't plan this out ahead of time that was going to be what we talked about. He's just being truthful with you guys. So appreciate you, Norman. Excited for your success, man. Excited to see what this year you do. You've just been doubling every year. So this year you should be on track for well close to 300, and then we gotta bring that up to 600, and then
That's right, man. Just
and
gonna keep it
so
going.
yeah, man, just keep it up, brother. It's awesome, man. I remember, and well, I'll shut up after this, but I remember on one of our first calls, you were working on like it was like a $1,500 list. I don't remember. It was,
Yeah,
I
I
don't,
think
maybe
it's
it
gonna
wasn't 1,500. Maybe it was like 15,000 or something, right?
man,
It was,
I've gotten paid as little as $600, getting property sold, and that's probably the most work that I've done on a deal. No lie on that, because there were like it was heirs property, and there were 6 heirs involved, and after
yeah.
even after all that, I still only got like $600. So yeah,
Yeah. So, but you've come a long way, my man. So I appreciate you. Thanks for doing this for us, and look forward to talking to you soon.
thanks, man.